Hello, you're listening to On the Payroll, my podcast about project management, consulting, project implementation and delivery, best practices around projects for Microsoft CE and Salesforce, leadership, teamwork, all sorts of things that really interest me. Basically, it's just an opportunity for me to talk to people about topics that I like, and hopefully my listeners will enjoy learning a few things as well. In today's episode, I speak to Michaela Janikovicova. She is a Salesforce admin with PowerPoint, and we talk about her journey from Slovakia and how her background around learning politics at university, how it's helped her, the things that she's learned along the way, such as moving to a new country, going to a university, being around people and culture that's different from hers, the lessons she learned in between, such as when she was bartendering with Brewdog. I really enjoyed this conversation because it touched upon a lot of things that I think are very important for people nowadays, such as critical thinking, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the ability to introspect and think about how and why things happen and how is one perceived in the world and how to just communicate better. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did making it with her. Enjoy.
If I start laughing uncontrollably, please just give me a second, because when I'm nervous, I laugh.
Okay. Also, the other thing is, if you want to stop and start again, just give it a few, so like 4 or 5 seconds, because I know how to do the editing. Cool. And then I'll just we had this conversation when we did the testimonial. So.
Oh yes.
Right. Okay. So don't worry about that. All is good. Right. Okay. Hi, Michaela. Welcome to my podcast On the Payroll. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. I've been looking forward to this, so I'm hoping it's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be a lot of fun. Right. There's some questions that I'd like to ask you, especially around your experience with regards to Microsoft Dynamics and Salesforce.
Okay.
But what would be really great is if you can walk us through your journey from the beginning, wherever you'd like to start, to where you end up today.
Yeah, I think, and as I said to you before, I really like talking about my journey because I think it's a very good example of how to try and find yourself. I have done a lot of different things at a lot of stages of my life, in some parts in quite rapid succession. But it has all led me to where I am right now, and what I'm doing right now will again lead me to where I will be in 5-10 years and everything. So everything that I have done, however good or bad the experience has been, is something that I really appreciate that I had the chance to do. So with where to start, I think I'm going to start with what I thought I wanted to do when I moved to this country. So I'm originally from Slovakia. And most of my studies throughout my life before I moved here were in English. So coming to this country, I've already had fairly good education that I've been lucky to get. And when I was moving here, my goal was to study politics. I was also very interested in languages, so I wanted some kind of a combination of that. And then once I finished studying politics, maybe go into international relations, go back to my country and be in politics and make great changes and make things better, which was a very high ambition. I first started my studies in Glasgow, didn't like it there, too rainy, got the worst flu of my life right like in the second week I think that I've been there, so that was terrible. Decided to move to London, and I studied and finished my degree at UCL. And even that, so just to kind of explain, I think that there's a phrase that I like to use to kind of describe me, which is I like to do all the things. which means that I'm interested in everything, and I want to learn about everything and anything. So when I started my studies at UCL, I also wanted to do languages, so I took up Arabic, for example. And yeah, it is a fantastic language. Really love it. And so going through my studies, I was lucky enough to get an internship back in my country with an MP for summer. So 2 months of working as an MP assistant, and I very quickly realized that I did not want to go into politics at all. So that kind of ruined my plans for the long term, which is fine though. I was still really interested, and I am still really interested in politics. So I really enjoyed my degree as a whole. But as I was going through my life, I also really liked beer. So not in that kind of like, yes, obviously I liked to drink beer, but I was really interested in beer itself. And as the culture of craft beer started rising and becoming more popular, I was really interested in the origins and what you can do and the different tastes and different like everything about beer. It was fascinating to me. So I started working at Brewdog as a waitress during my studies, which was a great experience. Obviously quite exhausting working in a bar. I'm sure there are a lot of people can relate to that while you're studying. But Brewdog was a company that really gave me a lot because they, at that time at least, really cared about educating their staff. So I had the opportunity to gain a certification about beer. So I am a certified beer server from Cicerone, which means that I can tell you how a lot of the basic types of and kinds of beer originated. So that's something that I still have and I'm still really interested in. But going through this and slowly finishing my degree, I knew that I didn't want to be in the hospitality industry forever. So I started working in an office as a retail operations manager and an office manager as well. So that was my kind of first job out of uni. Didn't really like it. Not the job itself. The job itself was fantastic. I also did about 5 different things. You know how sometimes it happens that you have a job, but that job is actually for 10 people. So I was doing a lot of customer support. I was doing chats. I was doing the stationery shopping for the office, everything. So again, doing all the things. But I wasn't entirely happy in the company, and so I decided to work in an actual brewery, carrying around beer kegs, like 50-liter beer kegs and bottles of beer and everything you can imagine. So actually be involved in the production and the packaging of beer. I worked as a packaging assistant, so it was really nice. It was an interesting experience. I don't think that I ever thought that I was going to stay there forever and that was going to be my career. But again, I learned so much. And that's kind of you can start seeing that that's kind of my theme of what I do with my job. It's always about learning. So from there, I then went to work in a completely different industry, the education industry. And this is kind of where I first encountered Salesforce, which is where my career is at the moment. So I worked in an English language school where I worked as a sales administration manager. So managing, well, not managing, but being the mom of about 10 people in the sales team, just making sure that they've got everything they need for their sales trips and making sure that the data we were storing in Salesforce, which was the CRM that we were using at the time, was nice and squeaky clean and usable. And that's where I found out about Salesforce. And I was like, what is this? This is so cool. You can do so many things. And the org that we had at that company was quite small. There wasn't a lot of complicated background process automation or anything. There wasn't a lot of customization. And the entire org kind of ran off one custom app that everyone was using that was specifically created for managing schools. So we didn't have a Salesforce administrator in the company. Everything that we ever wanted to do or customize or change was in the hands of the support team of the app that we were relying on. And with my curious nature, obviously, I started going, but could we do this? And could we maybe do it this way? And why isn't this working over here? And could I do it myself? Can you give me the permissions? And I was being that really annoying person going, can you show me how to do this so that I can do it myself and help other people? And as it went on, I just suddenly became the go-to person for the entire company to ask about Salesforce things. But I wasn't an admin at that time. And I thought that I wanted to go into sales, so I started doing a little bit of sales, and then that didn't really work out. And then suddenly a position opened in our tiny IT department for a system administrator, which was a combination of a Salesforce admin job, a Teams and SharePoint admin, and first line IT support, which I jumped at immediately. Despite the fact that I didn't have a certification, I probably wasn't the most qualified person when it comes to Salesforce administration at that time, but I had the knowledge. This was after about a year and a half in the company, so I had the knowledge of how our company is using Salesforce and what the processes are and who does what and who interacts with which data at what point, etc. So I knew all of that, and I had a very keen interest in the role and in learning. And a part of getting the job was also a condition that I had to get my Salesforce admin basic certification, and also one for Microsoft, which I didn't end up getting in the end because I started focusing more on Salesforce. But this is where I became a Salesforce admin officially. And I'm working on a couple projects and everything, and then pandemic hit, so I was furloughed. During my furlough, I was like, right, I've got a lot of free time, I'm gonna study. I did 2 Trailhead modules a day to get my badges and everything and to learn all of it, and then got my admin certification for Salesforce during my lockdown, started looking for a Salesforce admin job, and that's how I landed my current job. So that is my journey. It's I think a lot of people might say that it's a confused one. I mean, certainly my parents raised an eyebrow or 5 on the occasion of, oh, you've got a new job again. You're not going to stay with this company for a bit longer. No, I have reached my end goal here of what I needed to learn or what I wanted to learn, or patience with some people. So I moved on. And right now, I am very lucky to be where I am. That's not to say that there are problems in the company where I am or in the ways that things are working, but I think that where I'm currently is a fantastic opportunity for me to grow. I mean, I got the job as a junior Salesforce administrator in September last year, and I have learned so much, and I didn't even know what a flow was properly at that point. Like, I knew what it was, but I wasn't really that skilled in that background automation and everything. I have been since given a promotion because I have learned so much, and I have done so many things. And again, doing all the things. I knew nothing about Jira when I came in. I created our service desk because we had to have one. So I think I love learning so much, and when I have the opportunity to learn something new, then that's what I do, and I jump at it, and I get it. So that's kind of my journey.
Fantastic. That's really quite fun to hear.
Yes.
All the different things that you've been doing. What's really struck me is that a couple of things I think that sets you apart from a lot of the younger people who leave the nest, the parents' nest, go, well, what do I want to do? And the 2 things that struck me about you is, number 1, I think your natural thirst for learning, for knowledge, sets you apart from lots of other people. And basically you're curious. You're a really curious person about all the things that interest you. And the second thing I think is that you've allowed that curiosity to lead you to make the decisions that you've made. And I think that that's a trick that a lot of people miss. And a lot of people would think, okay, what kind of jobs do I need to get in order to earn X amount or to achieve this sort of status so that my parents have bragging rights, for example. It could be led in a different way. It could be your parent saying, hey, you've got to do this because think about the houses you can buy, the cars you can buy, and how much I can talk about you to my friends. So it's a different way where those decisions are made. And therefore, I feel that those are decisions can kind of lead to suboptimal happiness in that person's future. And I like how you have been curiosity led and you have used a benchmark in terms of, I finished learning in this particular role. I'm in search of something new, which you nicely put in that little anecdote with your parents and how curious they are in terms of why don't you stay? So that I like the journey that you've taken. I'm just going to take you back to, so I'm being led by my curiosity now.
Okay.
I'm going to take you back to the position you had as an intern with the MP. What was it specifically about your experience that made you think, I don't want to do politics? Because it sounds like from the degree that you've taken, the languages that you've sought to acquire, that would have been the best kind of role for you. That it sounds like that was what you kind of thought you wanted initially, and you've taken the steps in order to fulfill what you wanted. But then when you started your internship, something made you decide, I'm going to have a look at what else is there. What was it about that experience?
I've got two things to answer in that question, actually. But the main thing that you're asking about is, I think, with politics, in a very broad sense, obviously talking about politics, but I think my interest, I didn't realize at the time what my interest in politics actually was. I think that I thought naively, as a lot of young people do, and I was quite young at that time, that I was going to go and study and learn about all the things that I need to know and all the theory, right? And then I'm going to come back and start dishing out white papers, and that's obviously not what happens in politics. There's a lot of procedures and everything, but I think it has to do, the reason why I didn't want to continue on in that way is it has to do with the particular political environment in Slovakia. We are a fairly young democracy as a post-Soviet state, and I think even now, after I think it's over 30 years now, we're getting away from a lot of corruption, and there's if you search Slovakia politics in Google right now, a lot of things will come up which is about currently prosecuting people from the mafia in Slovakia who were in high politics. And it's just that the way that it worked there, and the little things that I saw, what you had to do to get where you wanted to be and who you had to work with, I think it just doesn't sit with my values and what I am comfortable doing as a person. And I had the luck to work for someone who is absolutely fantastic, and I think he's one of the few MPs who actually believes in what he does and actually wants to do good things. So that, and he is a very rare person in this regard, and in terms of Slovakian politics, and probably just politics in general, but he genuinely believes in the good in people and wants to make things better. But I didn't feel comfortable in that environment. And then I think that the second thing that I wanted to answer from your question was, I think that a part of what led me through my journey was being honest with myself about what I am comfortable with and what I am okay with doing and what I would allow other people around me to do to me and how they speak to me and everything. I am a fairly honest person. I don't like, playing games, and if there was a place without office politics, I'm right there. I don't like, as I said, I don't like playing games, and obviously politics is a place where you play games. But that's something that was part of what was guiding me. If I felt very uncomfortable at a company, I would leave, and that would be because my mental health and the way that I am allowed to work and what my life is, basically. Because if you think about it, we spend most of our time working, which is what it is. And I hope to be one day lucky enough to perhaps not work most of the time of my waking life. But that is the reality, and I need to be somewhere where I'm feeling comfortable, where I'm feeling that the people I'm working with are solid people and honest in communicating with others. And that's I think why perhaps my parents didn't really understand what I was doing, because my parents put up with things. And I think that maybe some of that generation just, you get a job and you stay there and it's your career and you kind of climb the ladder, or, you just stay there because there's some kind of a weird loyalty to a specific place, whether you're happy there or not. Whereas I think that what we should be doing and what actually might change things is look for places where you're comfortable. And if you're uncomfortable, it doesn't mean, well, I'll just leave. Like, I like to leave feedback if it's received. So if I'm leaving somewhere, and it's for reasons other than I just don't want to be here, but it's something is going wrong here, and if you continue treating people as such, then you're never going to retain staff. Your staff is not going to be happy. And I always make sure to leave that feedback or try and, pick those battles if they need to be picked, because it's the right thing to do. So I think it's a better way to go through a career. Like, be where you want to be.
Let me just apply some nuance that I believe is pertinent to draw out in what you've just said. I think people stay where they are not because of not being comfortable. I think it's because it's what they know, and for them it's home.
Yeah.
Whether or not,
I agree.
Yeah, whether or not it's a pleasant place to be, it is what they know. And the idea, I can imagine, because obviously my parents are also of a generation where stability, whether or not it's a great place for you to work and to spend the rest of your working life, maybe kind of secondary to the fact that it's stable. It's kind of what you know. And I can again also imagine the concern at you moving jobs in pursuit of something better or something more aligned with your values. So what I wanted to point out was, I believe that a lot of people don't change is because they are comfortable with the familiar.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree. And obviously my journey is also, a big part of it is the amount of privilege I get as a white woman. Like, I probably have opportunities, and I have the opportunity to move between jobs because I'm not struggling for survival. I know that I have, if something really, really bad happens, I know that I can go back to my parents in Slovakia. And that is something that I can influence. And I know that a lot of people don't have that. For them, if you lose your job, you lost your job. Not saying that I could go a year without having a job. I'm not there yet. But I do absolutely appreciate exactly what you're saying, that some people are staying somewhere because it's what they know and it's stable and it's safe. It's actually something that's very close to home right now, because my partner recently got a new job after staying at the same place for 6 years, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, obviously, but he has not been entirely happy there. And often, I've heard him saying that he is unhappy or it's not great. But whenever the topic came up of, why don't you look for something new or something different? And, by that, like, he's been in one job for the 6 years. I have been in 7. So for me, it was always like, try something new, go somewhere else. But it was always no, but I know this, and he might not say that outright, but he is aware of it. And we've discussed it, that it's as you're saying, exactly familiar. I know what to expect here. I know what the rules are and everything. And doing something new can be very scary. And I'm not at all saying that I have never been scared of getting that new job. Leaving somewhere after a year, 2 years, it's very scary, because you don't want to, perhaps you don't want to feel like a failure if you're not doing well in the new job, or it's a bunch of new people, it's a new environment, new processes, and it can absolutely be terrifying. I think I've always just managed to look at it as a new opportunity. So look forward to the things that I can learn there and the new people that I get to meet there. So trying to put that positive spin on my experience, where instead of the fear of, oh, it's new and unfamiliar and I don't know what's going to happen, I would just go into it with, oh, this is an opportunity to make a new friend.
You've opened up a really kind of juicy topic, I think. Okay. And that is because you brought up the fact of you being white and that you've got privilege and you being super aware of that, as am I. So I'm obviously not white, but my parents they are my financial base, just like you. Many, many years ago when I was starting out, I knew if what I did didn't pan out, the worst that could happen, go back to my parents, I would still have a roof over my head. So what we are talking about is the fear that drives people to stay where they are or to actually take the leap. And there's something to be said for people like you and I who have a safety net of some shape or form. Either one, we've got the education, the experience, and the confidence to say, I can jump ship and I know I'm going to land on my 2 feet because I can get another job. Or I've got base, I can go back to, my parents will be fine. I will not starve and I will have a roof over my head. And those who, as you say, who may not have that. I was listening to a podcast by Seth Godin, and he's one of my heroes. And he was talking again about this particular subject around change, around fear of making a difference and doing work that you love. And he had this one question, and she was a single mom. And if you are the sole breadwinner and you know that if you change to do something else and it does not pan out, the risks are a lot higher. And I think when people are talking about change, they aren't able to understand the nuances between the different scenarios and why people might fear it. I like the fact that you brought that up, and the reason why you've been quite courageous in the way that you've changed jobs is, it sounds like, number one, even though your parents have had concerns, but it sounds like they've supported you. They've not said, hey, no, we've spent so much for you to get your degree. Please, can you stay there at least for X number of years? Because in a way, it's kind of a sunk cost because you've spent time doing that, and now you want to be
And they still ask to this day, you know, are you using anything that you learned at uni in your job currently? Or, you know, whenever I got a new job, or is this something closer to your degree? And I'm always like, no. But that doesn't mean that I'm not using the skills that I learned during while I was getting my degree. That there was a lot of critical thinking and philosophy and being able to form an opinion and all those very, very important things, in my opinion. But to just go back to the inequality in whether you can or can't make certain choices in life, it took me a while, obviously, to get to the point where, and I'm still learning, but where I finally realized how privileged I am. Because growing up, my lifestyle was fairly middle class, like very comfortable and everything. Like my mom never gave me anything for free. Like, you want a second pair of jeans, you go get a job. And I went and got a job and bought myself a second pair of jeans. But even coming to this country, it was a big shock, because the difference in expenses between Slovakia, which is an Eastern European country, which is tiny and everything is fairly cheap, versus the UK. When I moved to Glasgow, I lost about 15 kilos because I couldn't eat, because I didn't have money. I lived in a flat that had broken radiators and my window was broken. My flatmate had to put she had to cover up her window with tinfoil because that's how cold it was. And I went from a very, as I said, like a very middle class lifestyle to suddenly being like, right, I can either have lunch or I can have coffee. Which one is it going to be today? And I think that taught me a lot. And partially thanks to my mother, who was always pushing me towards being self-sufficient. Like, you know, you want to go and do your flute classes? Great. Here's the check. You have to write it out. Okay, now you're a bit older. Well, here's the check, write it out. Here's the money, go pay for it yourself. And I think a lot of who I am right now at this point is thanks to my mother always pushing me to just go and do it yourself. If you can't, you can't, I'm not, okay, let me rephrase this. I was going to say you can't rely on other people, which is, I think, true to a certain extent. But if you want something done and you want it for yourself, you have to make the steps that you can make. You can't rely on things just dropping into your lap and just be there. That's why going to uni was an eye-opening experience, because UCL, being the university that it is, I had a lot of classmates who were very rich and who were constantly going out, going to clubs and buying all the clothes and everything. And I was there, like, just going to work after uni. You know, I had my seminars and then had to go to the bar to work until midnight to be able to supplement my rent, which, again, I was very lucky that my parents were able to provide me with some money. But I was still bitter at that point, because I was like, well, all these rich kids around me and I want to go out too, and, you know, the whole experience should be something else and I should be working. But I worked. And again, later on, I realized how, like, what am I complaining about here? I went to a fantastic university. I live in London. I have friends. I have a roof over my head, and I have food to eat. This is not bad at all. Like, I learned to be very grateful for what I have at every given point, because those things could go away any second. And just while you have them, you just have to be aware of how lucky you are that you are able to do X, Y, and Z, and where it all comes from.
I think gratitude plays a big part in helping someone see or have perspective, and also makes lives better, because we can't always have what we want, and just being grateful for what you've got lets you savor it a lot more. So just going back to, just indulging my curiosity again,
Yep.
just going back to your university degree, one of the beliefs that I have so far, unless you are a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, where domain knowledge is so important, and you need the skills and the knowledge learned through university, I believe that most degrees are helpful in, as you say, creating a point of view and critical thinking, and a lot of those really useful human and soft skills. If you have a look at those who went to university with you, I don't know if you're still in touch with them, but those, especially who've gone through the politics course that you've gone through, how many of them do you think, if you could very broad brush put a ratio or a number, are in politics at the moment?
Not many. Not that many. And those that I know that are in politics, they're not fans. But I agree, like, unless you're studying something very technical, where you just need those skills and you need the professors, even with Salesforce. I mean, you don't need to go to university to be a Salesforce administrator. That's a skill that I entirely learned through experience and Trailhead. There's so many online courses out there that teach you technical skills. But as you say, I think one of the big benefits of going to university is exactly that, the critical thinking and being able to form an opinion, being able to take into account other people's opinions and other points of view. I think a lot of the philosophy that I did kind of helped me understand that quite often in communication between people, there's no right point of view. Sometimes there is, but most of the conversations that we have and most of the misunderstandings we have, it's just that person is perceiving it differently. And that's something that I learned through a lot of the courses that I've taken, particularly, for example, international relations. One of the things that weirdly blew my mind at that time, and it's one of those moments where you suddenly realize, you have that light bulb moment. It's like, oh, of course, like, duh, was when I was learning about the different international relations theories. And it occurred to me, like, all of these things are looking at the same thing right here, but they're seeing it differently. And it's just about that different point of view and the different explanations that you're offering for that action or activity or that object. And I think something like that is really important in life and in learning how to communicate better with people. And it all comes down to communication, I think, in terms of everything, in terms of working relationships, personal relationships, and just being able to become a better version of yourself. It permeates everything, like getting feedback. You can either be a baby about it and get angry that someone tells you that you've done something wrong, how dare you, you've hurt my ego now. Or you can go, all right, interesting, what about what I said made them perceive what I said that way? How did I hurt them, and how can I ensure, or at least try not to do that in the future? Is it something that I need to change about my tone of voice, or is it something that I need to change about the words that I use? Is it something that I'm directly translating from my own native language that doesn't translate well into? There's so many things. And yeah, just going back to the point, I think university will greatly help you gain those skills, those soft skills that are so important in life.
Beautiful. I think you've actually, as you say, the light bulb moment is exactly it. If I look around at the different miscommunications there is that go on day after day, every day, any conflict, any situation, any disagreement, it's all about communication, not being able to not transparently, that's not what I'm looking for, but to be able to convey what you mean so that the other person truly knows what it is you're trying to say, and vice versa as well. And you've quite nicely pointed out, is it a tone of voice, or is it your background that's causing you to phrase things in a very specific way that's been taken quite not the way that you intended to.
Which has happened to me several times. It's very annoying.
I can imagine. Do you want to give an example?
Oof. I can't remember what the example is because it's always happening in whenever I have an argument with my partner. So obviously it's in the heat of the moment and I'm talking really fast and I say something and it's very strange coming from a different language to then suddenly your entire life is in a different language. And there's that point where you start thinking in the other language. I still count in Slovakian though in my head somehow. I don't know. But I don't have an example because it's always in the heat of the moment where you say something and you're taking reference from what you know and what you have learned and all the patterns in your head. And if you're directly translating something, it might be the syntax. It might be the tone, as I said, the tone of your voice, that the intonation that you're taking from the other language. There's so many little things. But yeah, my partner luckily believes me. When I say I'm really sorry, that's probably a direct translation and I didn't mean it that way.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you. So let's take the question a little bit more recent. And I know that you've worked in Microsoft CRM as well in your previous company. So you said Microsoft, you didn't say CRM.
I didn't say CRM. It was only with Teams and SharePoint that I worked with.
Ah, I see.
Yes.
Right. So not a like-for-like comparison.
No, not at all. I was briefly looking into whether that's something that we could adapt when everything looked like it. When all of your users are constantly telling you they hate Salesforce and you're a very new Salesforce admin, you're like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with Salesforce, but it's not usually that.
Okay.
But yeah.
What do you think it was they didn't like in Salesforce, and how did you change their point of view?
I think it's mostly about understanding how things work. So as someone who came from being an endpoint user, a direct user of Salesforce, I remember not understanding what things are and how they work. I think it's anytime we get introduced to a new piece of software or something new and you're asked to work with it every single day during your working time and no one explains it to you properly, and your questions of why is it this way and not that way get met with I don't know, or because it's been like that for a long time. You kind of you might develop a negative relationship with that system. And if you are getting errors or if some things are not designed properly or no one is taking care of your CRM the proper way, I think it's really easy to lose your users' motivation or interest or any kind of enthusiasm that they might have had at any point for the CRM system that you're using. I think what I really tried to do when I was working as a Salesforce admin at that company, and even with Teams and SharePoint, because everyone hated Teams. We barely launched it and everyone already hated it. But I think I tried to listen to my users and, so what is it that bugs you? Like, what is the problem here? Oh, well, this process here is really slow and I have to click, 10,000 times before I get to somewhere. It's like, okay, fine. We could do it like this, and go away and take their thoughts and their grievances and just try and figure out a way to make their life easier. Because I think that is ultimately at least the way I view my role as a Salesforce administrator, is to make your life easier as my user. I want to be there so you can do your job more effectively, faster, the right way, so that we don't get errors down the line somewhere else. And I think that was one of the things where I managed to turn it around for a lot of users. Not everyone, and you'll never, the same way that not everyone will ever like you, not everyone will ever like Salesforce or other CRM systems. It's just not possible. However, I did workshops. So despite the fact that a lot of people have worked with the system for a while, they never had a proper session on, okay, well, this is what this thing is, and this is how it relates to that and that. I came up with metaphors to explain certain parts of the system that made it a little bit more relatable. So, for example, it was a school, right? So we had an object called enrollment, and we had another object called booking. And then there was a bunch of other little things, and obviously accounts and contacts and all of those things. And I tried to put it in a way of like, you've got an account, which is your person, and that account has a basket, which is your enrollment for a certain period of time. And into that enrollment, you can put several bookings. So you're booking for accommodation, you're booking for a course, you're booking for some activities, right? And that is your enrollment, and that enrollment contains all of those bookings. And then when they pay for it, then that is it, and afterwards they leave. And if they want to come again, it's still the same user, so still the same account, but they have a new basket, a new enrollment, and they put new things into it. And I think putting it in those metaphors really helped my users go, oh, I get it now, because they didn't know what the difference was between an enrollment and a booking, but then they've understood. So I think as I obviously only have my experience to speak of, but I find that making your users understand what's going on and not treating them like, oh, well, you're not in IT or you're not a Salesforce expert, so why would I be explaining things to you? Treating them with respect and listening to their grievances and being empathetic. They're not really lashing out at you. It's not your fault that something went wrong and they got a giant chunk of errors and now they don't know what to do and they can't continue their work. It's not your fault, but they are frustrated. So you're there to kind of go, okay, how can I help you? What can I do for you? I can sort this out. You give me this information, I'll sort it out for you in 5 minutes. So again, communication. Communication is what is absolutely key here.
Absolutely. I think I totally agree with that. Okay, so let me ask a couple of questions around your specific experience with work and projects. And I'd like to, given the fact that you're currently in your second end customer with that's using Salesforce. So what I want to find out is, I think you've moved on from a place where you weren't as happy as you are now. So I understand also your current role, there are some challenges, and that's what you said in the beginning. That's fine. I want to get a sense of how your current role is more suitable or in line with who you are compared to your previous role, and what can organizations do to help make sure that their employees or those who are working, especially within a role such as yours, it's not a clear-cut role, and it's basically trying to get people to do things that they don't necessarily want to do, and putting you in a position where you can't win sometimes, especially if there's no executive support around, hey everyone, we all have to use Salesforce and these are the reasons why. It's just do it. And then you're the messenger basically to say, hey, you really got to do that, otherwise, I'm in trouble. So you, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a very similar situation that you are in now still. So you are helping to roll out and support an application that the company uses. Can you just draw some contrast between how it should be in order to help admins and those in your role feel more supported in rolling out change and increasing user adoption and generally making things better for users?
Absolutely. I think, and I'm going to repeat myself here, but communication is key, and that goes within the company itself. from the Salesforce admins or the Salesforce team to your stakeholder groups, and just in general I think you as an admin need to feel comfortable in exploring things and in finding out what the best solution for something is. I think what my current company does really well is that from day one, I have felt like I own my role and I own my piece that has been given to me, right? So this is not necessarily Salesforce related, but the fact that I was, I think in a month and a half or 2 months into my role, when I was like, right, hello, give me admin access on Jira so that I can make our service desk, because we were getting all of our requests through Slack, which got very messy very quickly. And the fact that they gave it to me, not unfoundedly, I had a plan and I made a whole presentation, and I made sure I do my due diligence to convince them that this is actually a good idea, that I should have admin permissions on Jira to get this moving along. So I think that the support that I have been given by my company, where they're like, okay, you have this idea, go and explore, go and try it out. Oh, you think that this way of doing things is the right way of doing things in terms of creating this specific kind of automation using Flow instead of Process Builder or something. Okay, go and try it out. Play around in your sandbox. Or there's no, at least in my department, there's no kind of ring fencing where like you stay within your piece of land and that's it. You are allowed to discuss things. You are allowed to question things. And I particularly am a person who is very honest. And so if we have a team discussion about something, some sort of process that we have to implement and create within Salesforce, I will ask, is this really the best way to do it? Because it could impact X, Y, and Z. And again, I have been very lucky that my team that I work with now is not taking things like that personally. They know I'm not attacking them. They know that I am simply bringing out ideas. And it goes the other way around as well. I come up with an idea and it might not be the best idea. And that's fine. We're all here to learn and explore. And that's something that I think that I have experienced with most of the Salesforce admins that I have met, is they're curious. They all kind of seem to have the motivation of wanting to learn more and wanting to know more and how to make things better. And what is this new tool that is coming out, in the latest release? Ooh, can we use that? How can we use it? And again, I don't know if this is most Salesforce admins or if we've just been incredibly lucky to be surrounded by people like that. And then talking about teams, assembling a good team for a Salesforce administrator can be incredibly helpful. At my previous company, I was the sole Salesforce admin. I didn't have anyone to help. I didn't have anyone to turn to find out if I'm doing things the right way, if there's perhaps a better way. And I'm not saying it was a bad experience. I learned a lot during that role. But I think having a team around me, having someone to bounce ideas off of, it's been a much better experience, not feeling like it's all on you. And that then feeds into maybe my third point, which is companies need to realize that how important the CRM is and not neglect it. You need to have an administrator, or at least a designated person who is looking after your system. Because if you don't, and then maybe, 5 years down the line, you finally hire a Salesforce administrator or a Dynamics administrator, they come into something where it's a nightmare, basically. Your automations are running haywire and process builders tripping over each other, and there's 500 million flows that you don't even know what they're doing because there's no documentation. So I think that in order to make our lives easier as Salesforce admins, companies should make sure that they are taking care of their CRM from day one. If you don't have someone internal, then fine, but please don't implement Salesforce on your own without some help or without someone who knows what they're doing. If you're implementing something big like FSL, for example, into your Salesforce, please do it with someone who knows what they're doing, because later other people are going to come in, and they will not only be having to deal with the pressures of the business wanting to get things in and new functionality, new processes, all of that, but they will have a mountain of technical debt that they have to go through. And unfortunately, if you work in an environment like me, which is we're basically transitioning from a startup to a big company, like we can't afford the startup mentality anymore. So we are having to exactly do that, deal with the pressures of the business of having to do things and deliver quickly and deliver on time and deliver quality, but also quantity, and the almost unreasonable expectations from top down, alongside with, well, I would love to make this new thing for you, but I can't because I'm hitting CPU timeout limits because we have 20 process builders on K subject, So yeah, I have heard enough horror stories about orgs that have not been cared for properly.
I think you bring a very pertinent point around, especially if you work in a very dynamic, very fast-paced company. There is this constant pressure, and what that means is that you've got to weigh the balance between doing something quickly, because sometimes doing something quickly accrue debt, versus doing it properly, which is the way that you should go forward with, but it takes longer. So it's
absolutely, and I think that's where the communication with stakeholders is really important, especially if you're coming into a company that is transitioning from not really having a Salesforce team to having a Salesforce team, and therefore certain constraints. That's been a big challenge and a very good learning opportunity for me at my current role, where stakeholders were for a very long time used to either doing things themselves or having things done very quickly because they learned how to make a process builder, so they would just throw in a process builder, and there wasn't really any controls over it, which makes sense if you're in the startup environment. But then you have the problem of how do you get your stakeholders on board with a change in process so big where they lose certain privileges that they've been used to having for a very long time, and making it then harder for them to get the things that they want to get, which in turn they want to get because there's business pressure from top on them to deliver whatever their KPIs are, or whatever they have to do it now because that's what the business tells them, that's what S&T will tell them. And you're here trying to do the right thing, the good thing, you're trying to convince your stakeholders this is the right way to do it, because if we don't, then our org will fall apart, and in 5 months down the line, you're not going to be able to do your job because everything will be failing. But I think that was a huge learning bit for me, where you have to have so much empathy, because you know that what you're doing is the right way to do it, and you know that what you are really trying to do is just help them prevent future issues. But it's very difficult to explain it to people who have had certain privileges for a very long time, and suddenly they're taken away from them. And that is not a comfortable position for anyone to be in. So that was a big one.
It's never easy.
No.
When you're trying to provide a choice to your users whereby they're both not equally unpalatable, so to speak. What they want is not something that we can deliver, which is everything they want right now.
Yes.
Without any repercussions. So, okay.
Just put in the process builder. If I hear that one more time.
I think that's why Salesforce is moving towards flows.
Yes.
Moving forward, because that is the way to go. I'm very conscious and I want to be respectful of your time. Just before we finish, I'm going to just ask maybe just one question about yourself. What do you think that people misunderstand most about you?
My intentions. I think this is where I am still learning. I might have portrayed myself here on this episode as a very communicative and open person, which I am, but I am nowhere near perfect. And I know that I can come across as harsh, or rude sometimes even. And it is usually in those situations when I'm questioning people, when I am trying to say, this is not the way we should be doing things. It should be this because that's the best practice, or, trying to help, but probably not doing it the correct way. So this is something where I will quite often, and especially in my private life with my partner, I am still learning so much on how to properly communicate my thoughts, because quite often the way I say things can be misunderstood. And it's, just saying, oh, that's not what I meant is not really enough. It goes back to interrogating yourself and knowing why you came across that way to that person. Is it the tone of voice? Is it something I said? And just continuously trying to improve yourself. But yeah, I think I have a lot of work on that to do still.
I love the fact that you're so self-aware, and that the things that you say and the things that you learn about yourself, you're continuously asking and trying to find better ways of just communicating better. So
it's hard work.
I just want to say thank you very much for a super fun conversation. I think it took us to places where I didn't think we would go, but especially like the fact that we've focused on change and the fear around taking the next step, which might not be related to what you were doing before, and so many pathways that we took today. So I just want to thank you for your time, and especially around how your journey has led you to where you are, and how your attitudes and your mindset has brought you to right now being someone in the Salesforce ecosystem that perhaps not where you thought you would be when you were doing your politics degree.
Absolutely not.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time out for me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.